Hi, and welcome to the Accounting Web 2013 Practice Excellence Program webinar. My name is John Stokdyk. I'm the editor of Accounting Web, and over the next 30 minutes, I'm going to be discussing what makes a successful small firm. The UK Managing Director of Xero, who's the sponsor of this category, and thank you very much for that. Interview is Linda Freer, who's the founder of Coalesco Certified Accountants, who is the winner of this category. So Linda will be sharing her insights about what she's done to improve client service. Mr. Client Service himself, we have Steve Pipe, who founded AVN, is now working sort of as a roving world consultant. And Steve, what was your charity called again? Can you remind us?
AccountantsChangingTheWorld.com.
Changing the world. Well, you've changed the profession quite a lot in your time, and look forward to hearing your insights from the judging room. It was a good year for small firms, I think. After last year, they actually had fallen behind the larger firms. I think they were just ahead in terms of client satisfaction. But there were some key areas, such as understanding the client's business, where they actually lagged behind large and medium firms. They were always sort of more flexible, and I think that the issue we probably see as judges with small firms is often they'll have great personal relationships with their clients, and that's what the firm is all about. But actually sort of sustaining that, staying consistent with that, and be able to expand, and you can't really scale up a personal relationship. So that was one of the challenges for small firms. But what was particularly instructive this year was from being the bottom of the categories for understanding their client businesses, small firms actually pipped medium firms, actually got to the top of that rating. And our statistical analysis showed that understanding the business of the clients is probably the strongest correlation to whether the clients would recommend you to someone else. Communication obviously is strong, and I think what, I don't know if you'll agree with me, Steve, we'll maybe look into this in a second. I think that a lot of the things you can do to improve client service aren't to do with processes, or it's to do with processes, but it's things that don't actually cost you money. It's more about how you relate to the clients and how you make them feel special. Finally, as a technology journalist, I was saying it shouldn't cost you money to improve client service, but I have found that a lot of the firms that make it through the shortlists are very good at taking the latest tools and helping them to strengthen their relationships with clients.
I'm sure that's a critical part of it, and it was really, really refreshing this year to see small firms doing so well. But I don't think we have a uniform profession in that respect. We have those firms that entered because they believed in themselves, because they had invested in themselves, because they were trying to go the extra mile for their clients, and that really shows through in many of the entries, and the detail in the entry, and the evidence that they're giving that are backing up their claims that they really are working towards and delivering excellence. Sadly, though, it's not the universal experience of clients. And in fact, I downloaded a report from Accounting Web just this week, and there were some crucial stats in there from 467 small firms. In fact, 82% have seen their real fees fall in the last year. 49% of them are working harder than the year before, and 80% are not achieving their growth target. So it's really, really fantastic to have an award scheme like this that allows us to focus on those firms where things are working well, as opposed to in many instances where they're not, and then to be able to draw out the strands as to what is it that's leading to the kind of excellent results and excellent service that Linda and the other shortlisted firms are delivering. I could pick out sort of three common themes that they tended to have. Firstly, they weren't complacent. The successful firms weren't complacent. They both had invested time and money in addressing the issues that needed addressing, and they were demonstrably innovative. And no doubt Linda will talk about some of the many, many things that we've done to build, all sorts of innovative practices into the everyday relationships with their clients. Secondly, I think they were truthful. They were truthful with themselves at confronting the issues that needed confronting, not accepting in a complacent kind of way that not believing that everything was okay, but actually, truthful with themselves and then truthful with the marketplace, confronting the brutal truths about, what needed addressing, what was going wrong and what was going right, but also then not making promises in the marketplace that they can't deliver. That if they said they were going to are proactive accountants, they actually behaved as proactive accountants, and that screamed through in the innovation and the statistics and the detail and the feedback from their clients. They weren't empty, hollow words, as sometimes they can be elsewhere, sort of written by marketing people but not lived by the technical people. And it seemed to me the third thing that they had in common was they just didn't settle for compromising. They didn't compromise their values. They all had a very, very clear sense of what the business was there to do, which was to help their clients build more successful businesses, earn more profits, generate more wealth, but also, and this was really gratifying to see, most or many of the shortlisted firms, and certainly a firm like Linda's and the two others that were in the final with her, talked about, or mostly talked about, a broader sense of social responsibility, environmental awareness, and creating sustainable businesses and impacting positively on the local economy. So they didn't compromise their values, but they also didn't compromise. They didn't allow low fees to get in the way of compromising either service or earnings from the profession, for the practitioner, or the work-life balance of the practitioner. And what you see elsewhere is that not charging enough gets in the way and therefore causes one or other of those kind of compromises. So it was really, really instructive to see that the shortlisted firms, the finalists, and indeed the Linda as the winner, really were certainly not complacent, absolutely truthful with themselves and in the marketplace, and didn't settle for compromises.
Definitely a shift there, particularly from consumers and business owners who are looking for more than just a basic compliance relationship. They want more than that today. And I think that smart practices like Linda's recognize that there's an opportunity there to run not just more efficiently from an internal practice perspective, but to differentiate themselves in the marketplace. In such a competitive market as we have in the UK, with over 20,000 accounting firms all fighting for business, you have to fight really hard to ensure that your firm stands out from the crowd. And so I think customer service and building a reputation for great customer service is a really logical way for firms to do that, definitely.
The recommendation score of the 10 firms that came through to the shortlist was 9.85. Again, and that was against a category average of 9.12. So that's almost, or it's under 10%. But in terms of how high the rankings are, that was really huge. So like you say, Gary, we really were. There is a difference between maybe the top, the firms right in the top percentile, 10 percentile, and it's. I think there's firms that had made the shortlist in previous years, didn't this time.
I wish I could bottle it. In our own internal survey, 100% of our clients vote us as friendly, and 100% of our clients would recommend us to a friend or a colleague. And I think that's really interesting, building on what Steve was saying about having those personal relationships and how you do see the friendliness relating to that recommendation route. At Coalesco, on a day-to-day basis, we're trying to demystify accounting in everything that we do. It's something that is one of the biggest fears to the small business, and we don't want people to associate coming to see us as being something like going to the dentist. In the year, we've written a book about the financial practicalities of starting a new business, which was a very enjoyable experience. We saw the rollout of RTI, and we did everything that we could to hold our clients' hands. So we had seminars, breakfast seminars, cheese and wine evenings, and we also had a webinar as well that people could look at in their own time. So it's about building our client base and ensuring that when there are things that change, as things ever do change, that we're there to support those people and to ensure that our clients are in the best position and they understand, because there's lots in the press all the time. That scares people. We have our own quarterly networking evenings, so we like our clients to know one another. We're not scared of letting our clients see one another and talk to one another. And we do that as a learning experience as well as a networking experience. So we have topics that are soft skills as well as accounting type things. That starts on day one very much. When we have the telephone call from potential clients that want to come and see us, and they want to talk about costs, and they don't want to come and have that initial meeting with us. And that's disappointing to see. Of course, costs are very important, but we want to sit down with clients even when they're in a potential stage and really get to know them and get to understand what they want to do. That initial meeting, they go away with a list of action points. Those action points may be our action points for the future as well. But it's about giving them something to take away, even on hour one of that initial contact. We do have our service level agreements, as we were talking about, but we live those service level agreements. It's not something that we hide away from, that we shy away from. Those go into our very initial service proposal that goes out to our clients or our potential clients at that stage. But we monitor those, and we included those in our entry, as I know Steve saw, as did the other guys. And we are, it's absolutely imperative to us that we monitor those as a team and we look at those. They're not something that I use and I just sit behind. Our whole team here is built on my beliefs and my ethos for the future of accounting, and customer service is the forefront of that, and ensuring we do what we say we're going to do and do it 100% of the time, right, on time, every time, is why we come to work in the morning, and we don't go home any night until we've achieved that. So that perhaps gives you a little bit of flavour in my words as to what's really important to us every day. Returning client telephone calls is my absolute number one statistic that we want to look at all of the time. There is nothing worse in any environment, but certainly any service business, whereby somebody leaves a message for me or one of my colleagues, if it relates to payroll, for an example, and that just sits on somebody's desk for a day. We're here to resolve stresses and problems that clients bring to us, and quite often when somebody feels the need to telephone you, it's because they want to speak to you there and then, and it's not something that we want to leave sitting for 2-3 days down the line before we go back to a client. So that, to me, is the absolute imperative. Emails are a little bit longer in terms of replying to, but again, we have a service level agreement in terms of any email or letter correspondence that comes in, not only from clients, but any of the authorities that may contact us as well. And then in terms of returning accounts to people, some people, give me examples of where they take their books and records to an accountancy firm, and it takes a good number of weeks to get that information back. And people like to know once they've delivered those records into the office, yes, we're always working to compliance deadlines, but if somebody's got an internal deadline that they're working to as well, it's absolutely imperative, in our opinion, that those boxes don't just sit in the office. They can be people's primary books and records, and it's very important to us that those records are back in their safe hands as quickly as possible with that information that they wanted, because they finally pulled together all of that information back to them as soon as possible. So those are the three that I always ensure that we're on top of our game with every day, because, as I say, it's imperative that those stresses or issues are alleviated from people's day-to-day lives as quickly as possible, so they can get on with running their businesses.
Can I just jump in? I've got Linda's entry here with her actual metrics against those three. And the service level agreement targets that you set would be scary enough for most firms, but actually the level of attainment that you had is simply gobsmacking. And I think it's really important for other people to understand how high the bar is now being set by leading firms such as yours. So your service level agreement is that you'll return every telephone call within 2 hours. You average 28 minutes.
Correct.
You return every email within 1 working day. You average 2 hours 14 minutes. and that you would provide draft accounts within 14 days of receiving the client's records, and you averaged 8 days. Now, those
Correct.
are extraordinary, but that's increasingly going to be the expected norm, and I'm sure in your case you are continually trying to improve those, but what's challenging for the rest of the profession is how far behind that they are, and therefore how much more they have to do to reach your levels of excellence.
I think for us, one of the standard characteristics of Linda's firm, aside from the fact that she just recognised that running a more efficient practice is good for her and good for her clients, is the importance of service excellence. And I think if you dig into that more deeply, the culture of service excellence in a practice is probably where it starts, because that's critical to the overall experience that the customers get, and they're not going to get a great experience if the culture isn't aligned with that. I mean, for example, things like having a service level agreement for clients in a small accounting firm is an anomaly in the marketplace. Most accounting firms don't operate that way. And so the culture and the attitude of the staff and the practice is obviously critical when something like that is in place to ensure that the company makes good on its service promises.
How important do you think it is to the actual kind of client satisfaction you get to have that measurement culture? Did that make much of it? Did you start off doing that, or is that something you've introduced since you've started up? And what impact has actual gathering the data and looking at it? How big an effect is that on you?
I've always had those service level agreements in from day one, but they haven't been as visible from day one as I ensure that they are today. We also didn't have the technology in place when I was very much a sole practitioner in year one to be measuring those in the way that we measure them now. So it's very important, it's absolutely essential that we meet them, and they're not something that we, as I say, but they're not something that we hide away from. We ensure that we measure those all of the time and that we're on top of our game. The month that we've given you an example of is not an abnormal month. We obviously do have days where we don't meet those, and we do have the clients that have sent an email and do say, I did expect a reply from you, because it has become the normal within our client base that they will get that response. And we always know we're going to have a number of telephone calls the day that we didn't reply to all of our emails for whatever reason it happened to be. So we do know that our clients feel it's important, because we do get the negative feedback, unfortunately, when things have gone wrong in the office as well. So it is absolutely essential, I believe, in the industry that we do begin to focus on not only putting those service levels of agreements in place, but measuring them and living by them.
At the award ceremony, one of your colleagues said to me, your clients will do anything. They love Linda. They'll do anything for her. But it is a real sort of philosophical challenge to smaller and sole practitioners, is that, as I say, you can't always scale up friendliness and love. So you have talked quite a bit about the systems you've got in place, some of the measurements and some of the processes. How have you managed to is there a secret to keeping that friendly spirit? Is that down to recruitment, or can you take sort of an introverted technical person and turn them into sort of this kind of client service focused, love machine?
I don't think you can. I do think it goes back to recruitment. I think there is an inbuilt friendliness and an inbuilt love within a number of people, isn't there? And I genuinely am a friendly, warm, giving person. 2 weeks ago, a client came to see me whose wife had sadly passed away 6 months before, and it was the first time that I'd seen him. And he's a lovely client. And I said to him, actually, Lee, let's go to the pub. And I took him to the pub. And I love my business because I have the flexibility to do that. I don't monitor timesheets. I don't run timesheets. I don't sit here and worry about the clock. I give my clients what they need when they need it. And that guy that day actually just needed to go and talk. And he needed to go and talk about a number of things other than his business. And inevitably, I am his accountant, so a lot of that conversation was about his business. But that takes a certain type of person to do that. And I've been in this profession for nearly 19 years now, and I've met some very dry, grey accountants, and I wouldn't be able to mould them to be a Coalesco employee. And so the ladies around me that I have working for me, they come from backgrounds not necessarily accountancy, but the absolute key thing that I look for in my team around me is to ensure that we deliver outstanding customer service and that we are a friendly group of people that do always have the kettle on, make sure that there's a coffee in somebody's hand when they need it, and that we take a genuine interest in their business and we give them 110%, and we ensure that we can communicate with them on a level that they understand, but they feel that they can communicate with us.
On every single metric that you measured this year, comparing the small firms against the medium and the large firms, the small firms did better across the sample as a whole, which I think, you know, says a huge amount about those firms that entered. Now, what Linda was describing, I think, is recruiting for attitude and then training for skills. If someone doesn't have the right kind of personality, if they don't share your values, and if they don't share your determination to make a difference and be helpful and be friendly and go the extra mile, then no matter how technically able they are, they're never ever going to come on that journey fully with you. And there was a really, I referred earlier to the report I downloaded from AccountingWeb over the weekend. One of the other shocking statistics in here, and it's quite clear how this contrasts with Linda's behaviour, but one of the questions that the 467 small practitioners were asked was, what are the things that take up your time, that stop you making the business more successful? And staggeringly, one of the 2 or 3 top things that the practitioners said were getting in the way was talking to clients. Now, if you don't understand the importance of talking to clients, both at a human level and responding to their situation, no wonder those particular practices are struggling. But look at the difference between that and Linda going down the pub. Now, not only does that, you know, is that congruent with who you are as a human being, Linda, but actually our research shows that 34% of the time, if you meet with a client, some more work comes off the back of it. Probably not in this situation because the circumstances were different, but they'll love you, they'll respect you, they'll value you, they'll trust you, and commercially, quite a lot of the time, extra work comes off the back of it, about a third of the time. You contrast that with the accountants, often the technically focused accountants, for whom talking to a client is just a blessed nuisance that gets in the way of running the practice, and there's one of the big challenges, isn't it?
Yes, definitely.
I think it comes back to culture again, and I think Linda has obviously got a very clear sense in her own mind about what great client service excellence looks like. The cultural dimension to that, and not just because it makes her a more effective practitioner, but that it helps with referrals and that whole kind of client relationship. But I think it's also interesting to note that Linda will have personally hired and selected all the people that she's brought into her firm in the last 5 years, and will have very deliberately and naturally selected people that fit in with that worldview that she has, that can help bring their expertise and their attitude to that client service journey. When you have that kind of framework, it's really interesting because everybody in the practice then sees not only do they have an individual accountability to that client relationship, it's not just they're on point for it, but they have a collective accountability as well, and moreover, they want to cherish that reputation that they've built for great client service, which can only be good for the customer because it means that the staff and team are really motivated to help them and to satisfy them. I think it's really important, the whole cultural dimension of this.
Is that something that's had any impact on your clients, Linda? And and if so, how do you go about managing those kinds of clients where that might be an option?
The vast majority of the work that we do is compliance work, so this is obviously one of the external threats to our business in the future, as it is to many small accountancy practices. Coalesco is about delivering the customer service and being an integral part of people's business. not everybody requires that service, and not everybody benefits from that service because they don't ask the questions and they don't allow us to give what we would like to give to them. So yes, I do think it's a threat for the future. It's not something, touch wood, we have experienced so far, but I do believe that if the small practices continue to look at their culture, to look at their customer service, to have the relationship that clients are able to have with Coalesco and many of our other small accountancy businesses out there, then they will still need or still desire to have a relationship with that external person for many other reasons other than simply the compliance nature of the relationship that we hold with those businesses. So interesting times for the small business ahead, yes. So we have clients that we do see once a year with a carrier bag. They are the clients that don't have the full experience and the full impact that Coalesco can give such clients. But I do appreciate that those accountancy firms that are just simply giving compliance services are going to struggle in the future. What Coalesco is here to do is be more of an integral part of those businesses and to do everything that we can to build a relationship with those people that feel that they can ask the questions that they may desire the answers to throughout the year with a personal touch and linked specifically to their case. Rather than just it being a compliance question that they can find the answer on a very black and white Google internet search as an example.
There were a huge number of merchants of doom, and I may have joined the brigade of people saying that when audit thresholds first came in, and then as they got larger and larger and larger, that core part of compliance work was going to disappear, and that accountants would need to reskill themselves up to for that brave new world that followed. And that's absolutely, I think, continues to be the case. One of the things which I found fascinating in the benchmark data for the small firm category was the and this I think answers the question and gives the new set of opportunities. You asked the question of the 2,000 or so clients of the practice that took part, whether they were aware that their accounting firm provided certain services, and staggeringly, only for accounts audit, which was one category, and tax compliance, were more than 2/3 of the client base aware that their accountant could help them with services. Less than 2/3 of clients were aware of tax planning, management accounting, business planning, financial advisory, and all the other things that the firm could do. Now there we come back to Linda's point about if you talk to your clients more often about how it is that you can help them, and you demonstrate that, and you make proactive suggestions. I love the fact that your meetings result in an action plan. That's one of the things I've been encouraging accountants to do for a very, very long time. But when you make valuable recommendations, when you get your client base more aware of the things that you can do to help them, yes, the compliance side of the income stream may start to dry up, but there's that huge opportunity from that large part of even the existing client base that doesn't even know what we can do to help them. And it's not enough to give them a list of services, because a list of services is a meaningless directory. We've got to sort of be constantly helping them identify the circumstances, the trigger issues that mean that a particular service might be useful or relevant to them. And a list of services doesn't cut that. But there's a huge opportunity within our existing client bases to communicate with them more fully. And I found it's really amazing that the clients were saying that, yes, they communicate with us very well. Their average score is 9 something. But in fact, they weren't communicating the range of services, and therefore clients can't possibly buy them. That has to be our #1 challenge. Be more proactive, be more valuable, talk more often, make our existing client base more aware of how we can help, demonstrate the value in that help so that they're happy to invest in it, and then the compliance side of the business can shrivel for sure. It won't matter.
Yes, most certainly. We always enjoy taking part in anything such as this because we like to understand and we like to sit down and take the time to review our own business. It's very, very important. You can become very client-focused and very caught up in the day job. So in taking part in something like the Practice Excellence Awards, the British Accountancy Awards always gives us the opportunity to review what we're doing and give us all the opportunity and the team to talk together about what we could should be doing in the future. So we're very proud to be, as an example, a Xero partner. We don't ever say to our clients, you have to use something, but we certainly see the cloud as an exciting way forward. So watch this space and we'll keep moving forward and see what clients we can move on to Xero in the next few weeks. So that's one of our key objectives at the moment. Cloud, here we come. Big thumbs up there.